Positive Gains is back today, and my special guest is Teneisha Collins, who is an actress, host, personality, writer, jack of all trades. Teneisha, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, how did you get started into acting?
I started really young when I was about 8 years old. A teacher in elementary school who used to be an actor decided to start a theater program in the school where she would get kids together and we would rewrite our favorite stories into stories that were adapted to what we wanted to do. And I got my stage debut as Santa Claus, so which is a little gender bending role. But once I was on the stage, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And I think that was the moment that I realized that I wanted to do this. Growing up, I watched TV. I always wanted to be on TV, but didn't know what that meant. But once I had the opportunity to actually create and perform, I was like, this is what I need to do. And I'm sure I heard it on Entertainment Tonight or something that you needed an agent. So I handed my parents, this is going to age me, the yellow pages and was like, find me an agent at 10 years old. And that's how I started. I did it kind of for fun. I auditioned, but it wasn't, I didn't do it at like very high professional level that I'm doing it now. But I never really took, even if I took a step back, I never really left the industry. So when I was ready to get back in, I just jumped in like head first from get-go at like 20 years old and kind of haven't stopped since then.
All right. So when did you think it would be a reality? As you're coming up and like you said, looking through the yellow pages and trying to find some form of representation. When did you actually think that this would happen for you?
So I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and I didn't know it at the time, but Montreal was and still is one of the top like 7 film markets in North America. At the time when I was a child, it was #1 in North America, actually, with more productions in Montreal than LA and New York combined, I think,
Wow.
But I had no idea. So to me, in my little child mind, I thought that I had to be in Hollywood. So for me, it was always like, okay, this is just going to be something that I can do for fun. There were some shows that I loved that I knew that filmed in Montreal, like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and things like that. And I was like, I could be on those shows. But I never really thought when I was younger that I was going to make a career. It was just like, what you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an actor. What do you want to do now? I want to, like, even auditioning was so much fun for me. And I think it's when I got back into the industry at around 20 years old and I started making friends with people who were, like 10, 20 stages ahead of me, who were on these shows that we watched in Canada and the US. They were like, stars of American shows and doing American movies and big Canadian productions too, that I kind of saw, oh, this actually is accessible from home. Up until that point, I thought I had to move to New York or to LA to make it happen, but meeting and making friends with people who were making it like either from home and then in Montreal and across, North America or directly from home was so inspiring. And that's when I was just like, okay, well, if I have friends who can, be the lead on this really popular show out of Montreal, whether it's filmed here or not, then surely I'm just as talented as them. I have the same resources. It's just that they've had more time. So that's kind of when it was like, okay, at around 20, 22 years old, okay, this actually could be something possible without, it stopped feeling like a lofty dream and started feeling like an attainable reality with a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice and preparing for a lot of rejection. But it still felt like, because I had friends in my sphere who were doing what I wanted to do at such a high level already, it felt totally possible.
And did you start doing the commercials first, or was that kind of just mixed in with other things?
So you know what? Like I did like one commercial and then I didn't do another commercial again until 2013, I think. And I was kind of at that weird age where I was just like, okay, they either wanted kids or moms, and I was neither of those ages. So I didn't do a lot of commercials for a while until 2013. I booked a Subway commercial, my first of many Subway commercials. And that kind of, I guess at the same time as the industry started shifting, they wanted to show younger millennials and not just models on TV, but like real people in commercials. And that's when I started doing commercials. So it's kind of, I guess, in the middle of my career did I get to start doing commercials. And I kind of haven't stopped since then, which it's so much fun because I've done commercials that are just local or nationwide or international. I speak French as well, so I've even done commercials
Wow.
in French, in English and in French. So it's a really interesting way to be able to do what I do.
Kind of a weird question here, but going back to what you said about you not knowing that at the time that, Montreal had such a big market and a lot of things were filmed there. I didn't know that obviously until you told me. Um, why do you think it is that people, I know the glitz and glam of Hollywood, but why do you think so many people flock there instead of, like you said, that's a large market? How come you think people don't understand or know that they offer that as well?
I mean, there's so many reasons. I think just historically, there's Hollywood, and there's Broadway and there's Hollywood historically. But since the 90s, even probably before then, Montreal has been at the forefront, and Toronto and Vancouver. But I think that it's hidden. Montreal is a city, it's a European city in North America. So it can look like France, it can look like New York, it can look like Los Angeles. We have great studios where they can do it indoors. So a lot of your favorite shows and TV shows, you probably don't even know that they're filmed here. Like the X-Men movies, they're all filmed in Montreal, you know,
Wow.
and you don't realize it because Montreal kind of ends up like being a chameleon, right? So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people just aren't aware that it's not something that we publicize outside of the market. But if you notice when you're watching even TV shows, every now and then, like on a sitcom, I was watching, I think, How I Met Your Mother, and they made like they mentioned Montreal in it, because even the writers hailed from Montreal, even though the show was shot in LA, so there's Montrealers on the creative front across the board. And I think that over the years, our film commission has done a really great job at, sorry, this is my little puppy
That's all right.
crying. They've done a really great job at creating tax credits to entice filmmakers and TV shows to come here. But also, we have, in terms of, let's say, for action, a lot of action films, especially when it comes to special effects, come to Montreal because we have some of the best green screen technologists in all of North America. We have great special effects team. We have great animation team. So even like Game of Thrones, the Wolves' Tales were animated in Montreal. Some of your favorite video games like Assassin's Creed, those are totally made in Montreal. They're designed and acted
Oh,
every
wow.
step of the way in Montreal. But people think of Montreal as, bars and strip clubs and like, the European flair. We don't really think of it as a film market. But once you have a foot in the industry, you learn very quickly because very quickly you're auditioning for a lot of projects that shoot in Canada. And there are,
So,
ABC, NBC, stuff like that.
okay. So, like you said, growing up, a lot of things were filmed there. So, what were you watching on TV? As you were coming up. I know you mentioned, Are You Afraid of the Dark, which is one of my favorites. What else were you watching?
Oh my gosh. So I was watching Are You Afraid of the Dark? I was watching Student Bodies, which was a cool show. And I got to be really, like, as an adult, I became really good friends with the lead. Degrassi, I think everybody
Yeah.
watched Degrassi. That's, Drake. Everybody knows Degrassi's Canadian because of Drake.
Right.
Degrassi was a huge one that I watched. But I think Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and then as I got older, I started watching shows like Pretty Little Liars and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and things like that. So I have a very, very vast array of shows that I've watched.
So, with a vast, majority of shows like that, did you try to maybe not emulate, but did you watch certain people on TV and like what they did on a certain scene or another person, the same thing? Did you try to maybe want to take that and look at how they did things, and did that influence you any in your career?
So I think that it's really weird being a performer because a lot of people assume that, and a lot of people do this too, when you're watching like a movie or a TV show, you're just criticizing everything. For me, I try to take off the actor hat and just be entertained. I know that if I'm watching, I don't know, like the Jackass, like I'm not watching it for its artistic merit, right? I'm
Right.
watching it because it's silly, it's funny,
Funny.
it's freeing, right? So I try to kind of keep that perspective in mind as to what the project is. But I mean, not to say that I don't get inspired. I just don't watch it with the intent of learning. Like for instance, like watching anything Viola Davis is in, like watching How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
Every episode of that show that I've watched, I was just like, holy moly, I want to do that. And then without realizing, I end up learning from watching her. But I find what I learn more from is looking at that person's life and their career path and the choices that they've made and the successes and mistakes that they've made versus their performance, you know? Because you can watch a performance and you can kind of say, okay, well, that's really cool. Let me try that. But the best actors, the ones that we love the most, are bringing parts of themselves to their role, right? So no matter how much I try, I'm not going to be Viola Davis, you know, but I can learn from the way that she approaches her work, the way that she approaches a role, the choices that she's made in her career, different things like that. I learned from that from a business perspective and from an artist perspective also.
You know, it's funny too, you know, talking about her and then just in general, like you said, learning about people, you know, like her in particular, when you go back and look at films that she's done that kind of went over the head, like for me, like Disturbia, you know, I had no idea until I went back and actually paid attention that she was in it, you know, and then just the growth from there to where she is now. I feel like that happened with a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's one of my, you know, I was talking about this the other day. It's one of my favorite things is to rewatch old shows or old movies and spot that actor that we didn't know who they would be at the time. And oftentimes, like I watched Eat, Pray, Love recently, and Viola Davis is in that. And she doesn't have a huge role, but she has a role in it, a memorable role. And the thing that's really cool is that even, you know, whatever, 15 years ago, you can see Viola Davis was Viola Davis. You can see the talent in what she was doing. You know, like somebody reminded me that Don Cheadle was on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
I love Don Cheadle. And now I'm like, I need to rewatch that episode now to see, you know, because I think it's cool sometimes. It's even sometimes cool to watch an actor from a show 20 years ago and they were just okay. And then now they're amazing because you could see, you can watch their body of work and see their education and their growth journey also.
Right. So, you know, when you put something out, whether it be a commercial or film, is it hard to go back and enjoy it? Just like you were saying, just watching it. I know some people say, oh, I can't stand hearing my voice, or oh, cringe moment or whatever. Do you get like that? Or
I used to not want to watch because I wasn't secure in the work that I was doing, you know. I think that, and every artist or every creator or any athlete even goes through a phase where they're just like, everybody else is saying, oh, you're doing great work, but you know that you're looking 10 steps ahead as to where you could be versus where you are now. So I can look back at things that I did and I'm like, oh, like just the whole process on set, I'm really insecure as to what I'm doing. But then looking back at it now, I'm like, that actually was pretty good. Like, why was I so critical of myself when I take into account where I was at the time and what I knew at the time and how I was able to internalize things at the time. Whereas now I'm the kind of person where I've worked enough and I've trained enough that I call it an internal barometer where I can feel when something that I've done is really good, really bad, just okay, or good enough, you know? And so let's say if I'm doing an audition and I'm filming an audition, I don't need to look at it like after we're done. I know which takes I want to use. I'll watch it later to make sure it's set up properly, but I don't need to rewatch it to try to pick a take because I know which one felt most alive with me. Because I now know that I've worked enough, let's say as an artist, to be able to know that if I've given my all and if I fully committed and if I feel what they call truthful and grounded in my performance, then it's going to look good too. If I'm happy with how I feel, typically it looks good. If I'm not happy with how I feel, it could be something. I could be insecure. It could be, you know, I'll be quiet. I could be insecure. I could have just been off. I could have been trying to push for an emotion that I could have just gone organically with, you know? So now it's more, when I watch projects, I find that it's more of a fun challenge to see which take they took, because you film it and you remember how you felt and you might have done the same scene 20 different takes from all these different angles. And I know which one I love the most, but what the director and what the editor love the most and the way it fits in the project isn't always the same. So what happens more often is I'll watch a project and I'm like, oh, they used that take. I wish they used this other take or something. But I try to just remind myself to be gentle and to be kind with myself and that I've done the best that I could in those given circumstances and just to be proud of it as opposed to cringing. There's very few things that I watch now that I cringe at. And usually the things that I cringe at are the things that I was just very insecure when I was doing it versus wondering how it's going to turn out.
Now, when you get to the end of something and then you watch the final, the end of the project, and obviously, like you said, you had moments or takes that you felt were really good, but then the director goes a different way. How was that, again, mentally though, thinking that, I wanted really to, for us to use this one and they go a different route? Do you ever feel like maybe that could have made the project better? Obviously you got to trust the process, but
So
how was that?
I think that, first of all, as much as I hate to admit it, it definitely hurts your ego. Whether it means that they chose the take that you feel that that you didn't look your best in, or you didn't perform your best in, or whether, my favorite scenes get cut, it hurts your ego. And you kind of have to like lick your wounds for a second and then remind yourself, it's not about me. It's not, even if I'm the star of the project, it's not about me. It's about the story. It's about everything fitting together. And it's not even about trusting the process. I'd say I'm not a director. It's something that I'd like to do one day, but I'm not a director. I'm not an editor. I'm not looking at the full picture. I'm looking at myself only. And I think that when I look at only myself and my performances, then it's easy to be like, oh, they should have used this take because I would have looked better, or that would have been better. But when I put my ego aside and I look at the whole project, and usually, like, there's never been a time when I've looked at the whole project and didn't understand why they chose a different take, or didn't understand why they cut scenes. For instance, I just released a film, Fatherhood, and I had several scenes that were so close to my heart, that meant so much to me, that I really wished were in the movie for myself and for the real people, and mostly for my ego. I wish they were in the movie. And then, but then you watch the movie as a whole and you take a step back and you put, yourself aside, because it's not about me. And you look at the whole thing and you're like, no, I understand why you did that. It didn't serve me, but it served the project as a whole, So I've never had a time where it's like, I'm lucky that I work with very talented professionals, and I trust them. And generally their judgment is the best call for the project. Maybe not always for me, but always for the project.
That's a great answer. I would have never thought of it like that.
It's hard to think of it that way, but it's like, you get set putting your ego aside, which is so hard to do.
Difficult, yeah. So that leads me into fatherhood. I pride myself on being ahead of movies. I, watch trailers and things like that. That movie completely blindsided me. I remember just scrolling on Netflix and I, saw the trailer for it, and then I was like, how have I not heard of it? I watched it, and I couldn't believe it was a true story. Man, there was so many key moments of that movie that everybody can relate to. So again, talking about the film, how did you get the call, that you would be on there? What was your thought on the script and just the process from there?
Oh my gosh. So one thing I think is really cool to mention is that we filmed this in 2019, in summer 2019, basically 2 years ago, pretty much to the day we had just wrapped. Maybe a week from now we wrapped. And at the beginning of 2019, I don't know, it wasn't a vision board. I just kind of was like trying to game plan for projects that I wanted to develop, and thinking of the future. I made a list of all the people I wanted to work with. And a lot of them, to be honest, are people that I personally knew. So peers who are just doing so great and so talented, but there were also celebrities on that list, namely Kevin Hart and Alfred Woodard. 6 months later, I'm on set with both of them. So that was just like surreal. The audition process was not unlike any other audition process. Audition, long wait. I had a callback, which means I had a second audition with the director where we really explored the character, had a lot of fun. I left feeling really, really good and getting really great feedback from the casting director, being like, you were the favorite, you're number one, you're pinned between you and another girl, but don't worry, you're number one. But then you wait almost a month, right?
Oh, so wow.
I'm waiting. Luckily, I had a friend in the production office who cheated, and he would just let me know, like, hey, you're still on that, the short list board, you're still up there, you're still top choice. So it kind of kept me a little bit sane, because I was so attached to the project by then. because by then I had read the memoirs. I had done all my research on the project, sorry. So I was fully committed. I was like, even if I have to, serve coffee in a scene, like I'm gonna be in this movie. And they always tell you in the industry to just do the work and then forget about it and let it go, which is a huge challenge for me. So it was very hard for me to let it go. And I remember it was the day before I was flying out of the country. I was going to Miami, and I was seeing Oprah. Oprah was doing her 2020 vision, her vision tour. So me and my mom, we splurged for like floor seats, like fourth row, where like when Oprah's looking at you, she's actually looking at you.
Right.
We spent a good like 3 minutes just staring into my eyes, talking about living your truth and living your purpose and all these different things, which was so meaningful to me. But as I'm driving to this show to see Oprah, I get a call from my agent on a Sunday afternoon, which you never get a call from your agent on a Sunday, being like, I just want to catch you before you left. You booked the movie. I was so ecstatic. And then it was just like a magical day where I booked this movie. So I'm working with Kevin Hart. I'm working with Paul Weitz, who is a fantastic director. And I'm working on this amazing story. And then I get to see Oprah. And then Oprah looks at me and talks to me. And the following week, I'm flying back from Miami, and I get the script in my email. So I'm reading it at the airport bar. And anybody who's seen the movie knows that because it's based on a true story, it very quickly gets very sad, right?
Yes.
So in the first 10 pages, you're bawling your eyes out. In the first 10 minutes of the movie, you're bawling your eyes out. Now, imagine me in an airport bar in Miami, reading the script on my laptop, and then within 10 pages, I'm bawling my eyes out too. So like, I didn't pay for my drink. That's a good thing. They gave me free drinks at the airport, but it was just such a visceral response. And then it was kind of a whirlwind because I booked the role, 10 days later, I'm on set for the next 2 months working on this movie. It was an experience that just felt magical. Everybody on set, from the crew to the cast to the producers, everybody really felt that it was a special project. You could tell that everybody was really aware of the importance of what we were doing because it is a true story. I got to connect with the real people.
Okay.
To this day, I'm still connected to them. So that made it like there's an extra responsibility when you're telling a true story about this beautiful family and their tragedy and how they overcame this tragedy. It was just such a mind-boggling dream experience. Like I felt like it was kind of like a fever dream.
Is that added pressure when the actual people are involved? If they're on the set or if they're kind of just hanging around? So
I played real people a few times, and I always feel an extra responsibility, even when I played, the villain, the murderer or something, in a true story. I feel an extra responsibility to be really, really honest and real about this person and not judge them, because right. Even if you are the worst person in the world, somebody out there loved you, right? And even if nobody loved you, you want to be able to do everybody else as part of the story justice, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was more just Kevin Hart's a comedian, right? Working in a dramatic movie. I didn't know what to expect getting in there, but I knew that I worked a lot in drama. So I had the experience. I knew that a lot of the other cast were very versed in drama. So we were ready to support him. He didn't need our support. He was effing amazing. But we were ready to support him because you want to, this is a story that's a tribute to this father-daughter relationship, but also a tribute to their deceased mother and wife, right? So you want this to be their swan song and to really stand, to really stand the test of time and really do them justice. So it definitely was added pressure, but not in the sense of anxiety, just more in the sense of extra. It's like when you're holding a baby, there's an extra care and responsibility that goes into that. And that's what everything was an extra care, extra gentleness. Also, I was surrounded by children and babies the whole time I was shooting. So that made it also very special. It really just felt like everybody was trying to bottle up the experience as much as possible.
And do you ever, on set, just kind of when you get time to yourself and you're reflecting, do you ever just kind of look around and think, oh my gosh, this is my job. I can't believe I'm doing this. Somebody pinch me. You ever have those moments?
Every single time. Like I always, people laugh at me, but the night before I start a new project, I kind of feel like a kid on Christmas Eve. I don't know about you,
Mhm.
but on Christmas Eve, I never could sleep. Christmas Eve in the
Oh
first
yeah.
day of school, I could never sleep. I was the nerd who was always excited about the first day of school. And so I can't sleep. I stay wide awake. I'm just so excited. But also part of me is also like, oh, I hope that I don't get the set. And they're like, oh, we didn't want you. We wanted the other girl. Um, but every time it's just like, I can't believe that this is what I'm doing. And whenever I kind of doubt where I am or wish that I was further along, I think back to 10-year-old Tanisha handing her parents the yellow pages, who would never have imagined that I was here. I think back to 20-year-old Tanisha getting back into the industry, who never would have imagined that I'd have the career that I have now. I'm living my own wildest dreams. So every single day, when I get to the trailer and I go to the makeup trailer and they're doing my makeup, I'm like, I get paid to have these people use me as their canvas. And then I get paid to work with the most talented cast and crews across the world. It's a privilege I don't take lightly. And it's an honor that I get to do this every day. And literally, like, I do pinch myself because it's something that a lot of people strive for, and it's something that can disappear in an instant, or you can have longevity, like you don't really know. So I just kind of treat every time I'm on set like Christmas morning, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. And how hard is it? Because it's not a typical job like like in sports. There's always a shelf life for people before they have to hang it up. It seems like being an artist or acting, anything in that regards. It's almost like you can do it until the wheels fall off in a sense, but how hard is it to keep booking and staying busy, especially in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, because like you said, it can go like that. So what's
Yeah,
that like?
I think for everybody it's different, and I think everybody has seasons and peaks and valleys, right? So there's a period of time when you're booking everything that you're going in for, and then there's a period of time where you're auditioning for 40 roles and you're killing the auditions and you're not booking them, or you're only booking the roles that you don't want to do anymore and you're trying to branch out, right?
Mm,
To me, it's one of those things where, just like an athlete is constantly training, they're constantly at the gym, they're constantly working with their trainers. That's what I do as well. When I'm on set, I'm learning. When I'm not on set, I'm taking courses, I'm writing, I'm doing things to develop myself and to further develop my talent, so that as I get older and as I progress and as the industry progresses, I can be ready for whatever comes next versus just trying to plateau, right? It's something where you're
right.
never going to be, there's no such thing as the best actor because it's so subjective.
Mhm.
And you yesterday and you tomorrow are two totally different artists, right? So I'm always striving to be just better than I was yesterday so that I can grow and continue to challenge myself. And then that allows me to be more ready for those challenges when they come and hopefully book more. But I'd say for any, let's say, actor who's looking for longevity in their career, one of the biggest keys I can say is diversification in your own industry, right? The people that I know who are doing really well, let's say the best theater actors, they also have very robust voice careers,
Mhm.
or they have commercials, or they write and they direct. There's so many different avenues within your industry. Like, I'm very fortunate. In 2019, I entered the voice industry, and I hit the ground running with a bang, and I was very, very fortunate that I got busy very quickly with it and it stayed consistent. So when the whole world shut down, I was able to continue generating income by doing
Oh wow.
national ads from my walk-in closet.
Right.
Which I know that if I lose 20 pounds or gain 20 pounds or lose a limb or get pregnant, I can still do voice work as long as I don't lose my voice. You know, if I lose my voice, I know I can direct. I can write. There's so many other things that I can do. And I think a lot of people are just so hyper focused on one thing that they forget that there are so many other silos within the industry that are just waiting for them to step into. And that was, to me, that was one of the best lessons that I learned from watching other actors. I know some great TV film actors who voice video games, or who voice animation, or who direct different things, or who are now working on developing their series, which is something that I'm doing as well. There's There's so many different avenues. And I think that as long as you are willing to keep that drive, and that mindset that you're always growing and you're always learning and we're always a work in progress, your longevity in the industry might not look exactly like you imagined it, just like your career won't look exactly like you imagined it, but it'll still be amazing and it could be something better than you imagined.
And can you talk about your series that you're developing?
Yeah, sure. So I have two series that I'm developing actually, but one of them, which was really fun, and I got shortlisted by Netflix out of like 15,000 submissions for this one. So one of my best friends won, I put in quotations, won ABC's The Bachelor 4 years ago.
Okay.
And that made me, because I'm her ride or die, that made me Bachelor adjacent. And what that means is that you're in the world, but you're not in the world.
Right.
So you can, I've watched her and all of her, the friends that we've made in that industry, watch their successes and their failures and their struggles, and then have this like weird trickle effect of experiences that happen because of that. I still get recognized because of people who watch The Bachelor, which I think is really weird. I wasn't even on the show. Um, but anyway, so that experience brought us so many amazing experiences, like, being flown to LA and, getting to sit in the president's box at Just for Laughs and meeting all these great celebrities and getting to do all these amazing, amazing, amazing things. But it also came, with identity crises. Like, who are you when you are just known for who you're engaged to, when you're actually an intelligent, strong, independent person, but you're suddenly known for who you're engaged to? Who are you when all of a sudden you and your friends and your family and everybody who's ever been in contact with you is now thrust into spotlight? And because people have watched you on TV as yourself, bare your soul, they feel like they know you and everybody around you. So compared to, let's say, an athlete or an actor, they're going to ask way more invasive questions with zero, zero, zero like respect. So through those experiences and through meeting other people, men and women who've been on the franchise, it started making me wonder how I'd react in some of these experiences. In their 21 seasons, the ABC's The Bachelor has never had a Black winner. They've had one woman of color who was half Filipina who won like 7 years ago or something. So they've never had a person of color. And I learned that with Black Lives Matter, juxtaposing with, how the media treats like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry and wrapping that all together. So it's a show about life after the rose, after the cameras start rolling. It's life after a reality TV dating show by the first Black winner. And then it's a dramatic comedy. It highlights the haters, the fans, the super fans, the contestants, and everybody in between. But it tackles real issues like race, like identity, like body image, like purpose, so many different issues while also poking fun. And yeah, so I'm working on that. I'm in a pre-production phase on that. So
wow, congrats to you for that.
Thank you.
I was looking at your website, and it was interesting, the layout. It's very self-explanatory, but you had a tab on there that said, what is it? What's my purpose, I think. And I think, if I remember correctly, you put on there that people were messaging you and asking for, I believe, advice and things like that. So I thought that was really neat that you had dedicated a tab, on your website towards that. Is that something that you get a lot of, those people not only asking for advice, but maybe, like self-image and things like that issues?
Yes. So look, like who I am to you right now speaking, this is who I am in life. I have my bad days. Everybody has their bad days. They have their days when they feel like crap or where they're not confident. But generally, I'm very positive. I'm very driven. I'm very motivated. And I'm my own competition. And a lot of what I do on social media, I'm just being myself and sharing kind of usually my own mental ramblings, things that resonated with me that I feel might resonate with one other person. And I inadvertently became kind of a motivator online. And a lot of people from around the world from different fields would reach out to me. And it was really humbling to me because it wasn't people who were trying to be actors. It was, let's say, an accountant who wanted to switch and go to law school, or, you know, a stay-at-home mom who wanted to go back to school, people who wanted to change their careers or who wanted to take a risk. And
Wow.
by watching me share my struggles and my successes and being raw and honest and vulnerable about it, but also watching me, you know, find my level of success in an industry that seems impossible, they looked at that and like, well, if she can, you know, this girl from Montreal can have this big role with Kevin Hart, then I surely can, you know, switch my major, or I surely can, you know, maybe grow the guts to be able to take a risk, because their risk seems so much more smaller than trying to make it in Hollywood, right? And because I realized that people were actually responding to my ramblings that I thought were just for me and like one person, I started to take the time to answer these people. And I've had people who asked me specific questions related to the industry, and I've sent them video messages back, or just to thank me for something that I did that just by being me inspired them. And I think what it made me realize is that we're all like, whatever we're doing, whether we're succeeding or failing, if we're trying something, I promise you there are people who are watching you who may not say anything, but they're making moves because of you.
Right.
All of us, no matter what we're doing. And it's just because I am more visible online that I have those people who are letting me know. But it's happening every day, because there are people that I know who feel like they probably have smaller lives, but what they're doing is so impactful to me, and it drives me too. Right. So I feel, and a lot of people end up messaging me, because I think purpose is something that we all think about a lot, right? And in Western society, we're kind of conditioned to believe that our purpose has to be tied to monetary gain, right? So we think that, well, if I love, like, for instance, I love crafting. I made this art behind me. I sell it for fun, but like, I don't want to do this full time. I don't want to make this my full-time job. And you can actually enjoy something and follow your purpose in that way and not make money from it and make a living. You know, your purpose might be raising your kids. You might be a really good barber. You might be really good at drawing and want to, you know, to spread positivity, send people drawings of themselves. It doesn't bring you any money. Right. But a lot of people question that. And I, it's so humbling that people come to me to ask me these questions. And I feel that because I have a platform, I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Maybe I don't even have any of the answers, but I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts, and I do a lot of trial and error with myself. That I feel that I'm, you know, I'll tell people, I don't know the answer to you, but this is what I would do if I were you, or these are things that you can explore, at least to spark something in them. And hopefully they find their own way, right? And I think that we can all do that on a micro level, even if you affect one person.
Well, especially if you're affecting people that aren't, like you said, even thinking about going into the industry, they're doing something completely different. And that's fantastic that, you know, they felt comfortable enough to reach out, and, you know, you were able to help them, even if you felt that they were, you know, you were just rambling. Your ramblings obviously, you know, aligned with their thinking, which is crazy, but very positive and cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. I think that it's one of those things where I always say, feel the fear and do it anyways. And I remember the first time, like, it's called long form content. Like, I am not a person of few words, as you can see. I talk a lot. I have a lot of thoughts. I share a lot. I don't censor. So I remember I did a post, and I had this idea, and I was just like, I don't post because I have to. I post when I feel compelled to. Right. And I just felt compelled to share this. And I was like, you know what? If I feel this way, maybe somebody else does. And I did this whole long post, and I'm like, most people are just going to like the pretty picture and move on. And the amount of comments and replies that I got from people that I knew and didn't know about how it resonated with them, I was like, oh, maybe there's something here. And then the next time I had a random rambling, I did the same thing again. And I realized that, you know what, like, this actually, even if it's not, it might not spur somebody to make a change immediately, but it has them thinking about something. Or even sometimes they send me questions for me to ask myself, and I learn from them too, you know? So it's like, I'm growing and I'm helping somebody else grow. That's amazing. And it's authentic and truthful to me, because it's what I do in my life with the people that I know.
It's like you said too, you're not staying in the tunnel, you're branching out and expanding. So social media, where can people find you?
I'm most active on Instagram at Teneisha C. You can also find me on Twitter at Teneisha C. And on Facebook, Teneisha Collins Official. I have a YouTube channel that is in production. There's a couple of videos there, but there's a lot more coming. Just search Teneisha Collins, but it's all under my name.
Great. And you had already kind of given some advice earlier, but still, if somebody, you know, the people that are in your DMs are asking, hey, what should I do about, you know, I'm a kid from, oh gosh, somewhere far away, similar, you know, to you, and I think I might want to try my hand at acting, but I'm afraid to speak, public speaking. What advice would you give somebody that has the aspirations, but they're just not sure if they should, you know, get up there and try it yet?
First of all, Canada isn't that far away. I'm very close. I think that for somebody who's afraid of public speaking, I would say, you know, do little things that get you out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's stop, maybe not in COVID times, but, you know, stopping and asking someone for the time or for directions, you know, that gets you approaching strangers, that breaks the ice. And then you might want to grow it a little bit. You can join a Toastmasters club. You can even, you know what, hide your face. You can get on Clubhouse and join a conversation on Clubhouse, right? Just things that are baby steps that will help you practice. But also, if you're afraid of public speaking, find little passages in magazines or books that you're reading, read them out loud to yourself so you get used to hearing your own voice. And then when you're comfortable hearing your own voice, enlist a family or a friend and be like, can I take 5 minutes out of your time and read them stuff out loud? And then take it from there, and you can move it to, you know, asking them to throw a conversation topic out, and you can have a conversation, and that will help. For people wanting to get into acting, no matter where you are in the world, there's an acting class that's not expensive. A lot of people think that I want to be an actor, I need to spend thousands of dollars for a headshot, I need to move to LA, I need to get an agent, I need to get a demo. That's way ahead of where you are. Even if you have raw talent, every actor needs training to hone their skills, just like a tennis player needs training, just like a golfer needs training to hone their skills. And before you invest your time and your energy and your money, that much money, it might be better to actually see if you enjoy it enough to want to pursue it full-time as a career versus doing it as a hobby, right? Because you can take a class for like $100 a month, $200 a month, have fun, and then you'd realize, hey, you know, I'm fun at this. I'm not really great at it yet to actually start to work, but I'm going to keep working at this, and maybe I'll look up some student films in the local university near me, or look on Facebook for some independent films that I can do, or local independent commercials that I can do for fun. And then if you decide, hey, I'm building some training, you know, I've been training a bit, I'm getting better. I actually want to see if I want to do this as a career. Maybe that's when you can look for an agent, or maybe that's when you can start looking for auditions and getting used to being rejected, because that's what this industry is. This industry is, you know, 50 no's for one yes, but that yes is so sweet. But if your heart's not in it, if this is not what you actually need to do, you will not last. And I don't mean that in the sense of the industry will kick you out, but it might take you, some people it takes them 1 month. Some people it takes them a year, some people it takes them 5 years, but eventually you're gonna get tired of being told no. You're gonna get tired of hustling, of grinding, of putting yourself out there, of constantly having to work on yourself. And you're gonna just bow out. And that's okay too. Maybe you're gonna bow out and you're gonna do community theater for fun, right? Because once again, it doesn't have to bring you money. It could just bring you joy, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the end goal is, like you said, not monetary, and I think more people should worry about, you know, their mental health and where they're at in life and the things that matter, not of what they want their friends to see them as and outside people. You know what I mean? I think that's another, again, a whole entirely different topic issue.
I could talk about this forever. I could talk about all this stuff forever.
Yeah. But again, I appreciate you being on today. I've learned a whole lot. I appreciate, you know, the dialogue and being honest and truthful about, you know, rejection and, you know, the steps. And again, you weren't necessarily, you know, the, how do I say it? You had a path and a journey, You know, nothing was just handed down, you know, and given to you. So it's great to see, you know, you rise and speak things into existence again, like you were talking about wanting to work with Alfre Woodard and Kevin Hart, and there you are, you know, looking at Oprah. I mean, it's great how things manifest. But again, yeah, sorry. Appreciate you being on today. You're welcome back anytime. It's been great.
Thank you. I'm happy to come back anytime and talk your ear off again.
All right. All right. You take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.